Hello everyone and welcome in today's PECB webinar. My name is Gzim and I am the account manager for security portfolio at PECB, also the organizer of this webinar. As you are already informed, we organize weekly webinars on regular basis covering different topics and areas. In this webinar we will hear about the privacy threat with drones. This topic will be presented by our guest, Mr. Ralph Moonen, managing partner of ITSX, an information security company based in Hague, Netherlands. Ralph is a white hat hacker, thinker, and cryptographer. He also teaches internet security at the postgraduate IT audit course at the TA's University in Tilburg. Today I hope you will enjoy this webinar and find it very interesting. If you have any question, you can write them in question box in right hand control panel, or you can use the option to raise your hand and we will answer to all of them accordingly. Please, Ralph, you may continue now.
Okay, thank you, Gizim. Welcome, everyone. Yeah, as Gizim said, if you have any questions, just pop them in the chat box, which I am actively looking at, and the question box in the control panel, and that should be fine. I'm just getting a message that we have audio problems, possibly. Am I audible, Gizim? Can you hear me? Hello? Ah, there you are. Now I can hear you again.
We had a problem at the beginning, but now you can continue. You can just go with the presentation again from the beginning. Everything seems to be in order.
Okay, fine. Then I will continue. As I was saying, you can pop out the questions in the chat or the questions tab in the control panel. I will be watching that. So, a small introduction. Who am I? My name is Ralph Moonen, and I was already introduced by Gzim. I will tell you a little bit more about my background. I run a company called ITSX, and we specialize in information security. And of course, you know, drones and privacy are interesting topics to us. We do quite a bit of privacy assessment, privacy impact analyses for customers, and on top of that, I am also privately a drone enthusiast. So I built one myself, which I've been flying and testing in the last couple of months, and yeah, so if you have any technical questions about how that technology actually works, just pop that into the question box and I will be answering that also soon. Okay? Right. I have a little agenda, and just to quickly go over, yeah, what we're going to talk about. Let's see if we can define the problem with drones and privacy, because it could be more of a perceived threat than an actual one, and I would be also interested in your opinions at the end when we do a little question round on how you perceive that. Also, what the possible impact of drone technology on privacy and information security will be. That will, of course, be a main topic that we're talking about. The changing threat landscape, and well, one of the biggest privacy invasions that many people see with drones are, of course, the high-resolution cameras. And we'll be taking a look at what they can and cannot do. So what are we talking about? Well, you see the picture of a drone down there. Well, that is not the type of drone that we're actually talking about. We are not talking about military drones at this point in time. Why not? Well, it doesn't really matter whether the drones are equipped. I mean, military drones are equipped with cameras. I mean, secret services, foreign states, and others have lots and lots of ways to invade your privacy anyway. There is no real big addition of privacy invasion with now they have drones. They have the technology already to intercept and to look at whatever they want, really. So also in some talks with people I've had about drone tech, it is specifically the consumer drones, the civilian drones, that are the ones that give the most unrest to people. And when I say drones, just to be clear, in actual aviation speak, they're called remotely piloted aircraft systems, or RPAS. So a drone is actually one of those things that on the previous picture, that the militarized ones and the consumer stuff, well, we call them drones, but and we will do in the rest of this presentation, by the way, too, but please be aware that the correct name is an RPAS. There's, of course, various types. You have the quadcopters, the hexacopters, the octocopters, but we also have fixed-wing drones, so gliders and airplanes, helicopter types, land vehicles, boats, ships. Obviously, we will be focusing now on the quad, hexa, octocopters and the fixed-wing ones. Why? Well, simply there is going to be 1 million of these things given in the US to relatives or friends or children over Christmas time. This is one of the biggest selling items in the world at the moment as a gift. And they range, of course, from the smaller types with 4 motors and a camera and a remote controlled unit, to the more professional types with 6 or 8 and a higher lift capability. I seriously expect the coming year to see a lot of news items about drone dangers, not so much the privacy also, but they're simply not as harmless as many people think. The DJI Phantoms are a great piece of equipment, but they have carbon fiber blades that spin at thousands of RPM, and they can seriously hurt anyone. And I mean, I've made the mistake myself of grabbing in the propellers because you simply cannot see them very well when they're spinning at a high velocity. So there's going to be a lot of accidents happening, a lot of people having to go to ER. So probably we're going to see quite a few news articles about that in the coming weeks when people unwrap their gift and try to fly with it and instead cut off their fingers, like who was that singer again? I think it was Enrique Iglesias on stage. The drone, he tried to grab up to it and stuck his fingers in the propellers, and now he's missing a couple of fingertips. So be careful yourself when playing with this stuff. It is not harmless. Back to the presentation. So the current uses for these drones, even in the civilian sector, are aerial photography, which is, of course, also the majority of people buy them because you can make cool pictures and cool movies with it. So that's the #1 use case, I would say. But there's also a reconnaissance and observation use case, and building and land inspection or surveys, because especially in the agricultural sector, there is a business case to be able to remotely look at the land, the crops, whether they've been watered, and other parameters. And building inspections are, of course, also a pretty obvious use case, as well as, for instance, electrical installations, so the high voltage distribution pylons that need to be inspected. Well, fly someone up over there with a helicopter, but that's expensive. You could also just send up a drone. And I'm sure you've all heard of Amazon wanting to use these things as a delivery system. And not just Amazon, there have already been cases of drones being used to deliver drugs, guns, telephones into prisons, just by flying or hovering over the open section in the middle and dropping the goods down when the prisoners are out. And of course, we have the emergency services, police, fire brigade. They also have many, many uses. Too much to go into now, but if you have any questions on that, just, well, type them in the box. So, I'm sure you've also might have heard of a couple of cases where drones got actually shot out of the air. So, well, this is just one of the comics that I picked off the internet about that happening. So, the drone that Amazon is using, well, you can see that that has some potential for this happening. For now, we're going to focus on this type of drone. So it's a civilian drone. It has multiple rotors and a couple of other features, and I'm sure you can see the GoPro camera sticking out there at the front. Since some of you might not be completely up to speed on the actual technology used here, let me quickly run down a few of the features of these drones, so just so you have an idea of what these things are capable of. So if my webcam actually works now, it didn't work just now, but maybe no, it still doesn't work. So I can't show you my own drone, which is sitting next to me. But typically these things have a weight of about maximum 4 kilos, and that includes the battery. The controller operates on 2.4 gigahertz. This is, of course, a frequency that is used for many other things. And it's also not secured in many instances. So the potential for taking over drones remotely and making them crash, or actually taking them over and just stealing them, is absolutely there. There is a protocol called Mavlink, which does telemetry, and in Europe that works on 433 megahertz, and in the US I think that works on 900 megahertz. That protocol also, again, is a serial protocol that is unsecured. And just recently, over on Hague, there was an article about someone who was able to intercept this Mavlink protocol and take over drones using, well, very basic equipment, just by sending out Mavlink commands and forcing the drone to accept them instead of the actual commands from the transmitter, from the controller. So obviously we have a bit of security work there to do also. Flight times. Well, I have a big battery. It gives me 30 minutes flight time. And, well, although I wouldn't advise it, it would be possible to lift another 1.5 to 2 kilos of equipment with that. Now, obviously, if you take up another 2 kilograms, then that will shorten the flight time. But yeah, it's obvious that 2 kilos will send you up a nice camera or whatever you want. The range, well, that depends, to be honest, because if you're in an urban situation, the controller, if it has a good antenna, will be able to do maybe half a mile, so up to 800 or maybe 1,000 meters. Stick on a couple of better antennas and you'll easily be able to reach double that or triple that, or well, up to several miles. But since one of the features is waypoint flight, it has a GPS on board. Most of the modern drones have that. It means that you can actually set up waypoints on a map and then have it fly there autonomously. Follow the waypoints. You can even tell it where to point the camera, and it will automatically do that. It does not need a connection with the transmitter. Now, in most countries, it's illegal to fly a drone without having line of sight, and especially in Holland, where I live, it's also illegal to actually fly it automatically. However, it's still possible. I mean, the law is there, but it's hardly enforceable and hardly enforced. Now, to give you an idea how that works, I will just switch over quickly to the application that I use to control my drone. Let's see, that's right here. Now, what you can see on the left-hand side, so top left is the artificial horizon. I will now put the drone, and you will see that horizon going with it. So we have a live connection with the drone at this moment. Below that is a window that gives me the telemetry stats. Currently, you see battery is at 97%. We do not have a GPS fix. That's because we're indoors at the moment, so I cannot get you an exact GPS fix. However, we can see other stats like the altitude and degrees of roll, yaw, and pitch. Okay. And then we have on the right-hand side the map, which is a large map of the area where I live in, and you can see that I can actually zoom in and create some waypoints. I'll just see if I can do that quickly. So I have 2 waypoints defined now, 0, and that's this thing here, and 1 over there. I could set the drone into automatic mode, and then at that point it would actually fly this route. If I right-click on one of those waypoints, I can, and that would be an autonomous flight then. Obviously, I'm not going to do that now because we're inside, but just to give you an idea on the capabilities of this software. It's also possible to enter a complete flight plan, so manually enter waypoints, including altitudes, how long to stay there, where to turn, and how to perform that flight. So this is actually pretty sophisticated software, and it's called APM. It's open source, and it's one of the most sophisticated drone control softwares out there. You can go into setup. You can tune many, many variables, and when you're done, it has collected all the telemetry, and you can actually have graphs here that tell you what the status was of all the subsystems, and you can see them right here. You can see the attitude, all them. So if you make a flight, you can come back and check everything. Okay, let's get back to the presentation. It has most of them have safety features. So these days, when the battery is nearly empty, the drone will automatically return home. Of course, you need enough battery to land and do that. So you have to set the thresholds at an appropriate value for that battery. Most of them have live video feeds also. So let's see, what could we do that would invade privacy with a drone? Well, for starters, you have to look at what this thing can do. Most of the drones are controlled by a flight controller that is a standalone unit. It's usually a modular. I use this thing. It's called a PECB. It's made by 3D Robotics, and it's one of the most sophisticated controllers out there. It's very stable. It runs a real-time version of BSD called Nutix. So it has an interface. You can SSH into it. You can write your own scripts for it if you want. And the APM software is purely open source also, so you are quite, it's quite possible to write your own scripts. This is very powerful, of course, and one of the things that attracted me to this specific controller in the first place. Other components are, well, of course, we have batteries on the things, motors, we have a receiver, flight controller, we have the camera, we have usually video transmitters on that operate at something around 5.9 gigahertz. And often these are just connected to the VGA out or analog out of the camera. So that's the ground station that I already showed you. How is this going to impact security and privacy? Well, I think it's obvious that some people would like to use them to spy on other people, especially if they're lying, enjoying the sun in a non-obvious place. So this is something that actually has happened quite a few times. Well, if we look at drones and their potential impact on information security, we have to see them as a simple way of getting physically close to a target. Why would you want to do this? Well, take high-resolution pictures, but you could also intercept or inject mobile communications locally. You could do that. Maybe you're familiar with a device called a Wi-Fi pineapple, which is used to basically set up fake base stations, so Wi-Fi base stations, access points. There have already been people that have mounted such a Wi-Fi pineapple under a drone and flown it over areas and intercepted wireless communication that way. But there's no reason to stop there. You could actually put a software-defined radio under a drone and have it run a fake GSM base station, and you could build your own Stingray device, your flying Stingray device that way. This would then be used to intercept 2G, so GSM communications. And, well, really, there's nothing to stop you from making it into a flying mobile hacking platform. In fact, that is one of the use cases that I built my drone for. So now I have it running and flying very reliably. The next step will be for me to put a single board Linux system under it and my Blade RF SDR. So that is that's a type of SDR that is capable of emulating a 2G base station, and of course Wi-Fi interception plus Bluetooth interception, and I might go off and do some Zigbee and or long-range Wi-Fi or long-range WAN interception. So if you then actually give this thing a 4G internet or 3G internet connection back, you can stream everything you are sniffing and analyzing, stream it back to your base station. How realistic is this? Well, it's quite realistic, really, because with the current technology, it's trivial to build up a setup like that and send it up into the air and use it to basically, well, spy on a physical location. And it's being done. I mean, I'm not the only one with this idea. There's a couple of Italian guys who are actually now actively building a drone with these hardware features. So they're going to put a pineapple under it and some Bluetooth sniffers, a software-defined radio, and some other RF tools, as I already mentioned, telemetry receiver, the video transmitter and receiver. So where does that leave us? Well, of course, there's obvious limitations. You can't fly the thing 10 miles away because it just doesn't have that range. That would take more than half an hour, and by that time the battery would be dead. So there are certainly limitations, but there is also, of course, a more realistic scenario. You could, for instance, fly the drone out to a targeted office building, land on the roof, sniff all the wireless communications while streaming back live, and when the battery's not yet completely empty, but depleted enough so that you have enough to get back, automatically fly back. This is one of the test cases that I'll be trying to achieve in the next few weeks, and I'll keep you up to date if you want on that, if that works. Brings me to a related subject. If you're under attack from a drone like that, then it's pretty hard to detect a drone. I was speaking to the security officer of a nuclear facility not too far back in time, and they actually did see this as a threat, not just for explosions, but actually, you know, for explosives and attacks, terrorist attacks, but actually also for spying, so spy drones. And he was telling me that it's quite difficult to actually detect a drone. The thermal image of a drone is not much different from a bird. Temperatures are quite low, these engines don't run hot, and they're not very loud either, so you have to be quite close to hear them. I mean, when it's right next to you, the drone will actually make a quite loud buzzing noise. At 20 to 30 meters distance, it's already a lot less, and at 50 meters, you can hardly hear them. And it's also quite easy to hide the controller data and the stuff being streamed back using frequency hopping and encryption. So you can't really detect the presence of a drone using the, well, basically the radio frequency emanations coming from it. And if it's flying in autonomous mode, it won't be transmitting anyway. So any drone detection system has to be partially, at least, visually based or camera based. And there's only a few products on the market currently, professional products, that can detect drones. And even then, they don't have any real countermeasures. Maybe you saw the Korean police demonstrating their drone catching drone. This was a little video that was out on the internet yesterday or the day before, and they were demonstrating that they had a drone which had a net that could catch smaller drones. So this is typically then used for the you know, the entry-level consumer drones and the sort of little DJI drones. They would not be capable of catching a hexacopter or an octocopter, but they don't see that happening that often. So, yeah, if you go out on internet, then check the Korean drone catching drone. Let's see. We have some privacy concerns with these things, and to be honest, well, as you'll see in a minute, some of these concerns are legitimate and others are not. In fact, one of the researchers that I'd like to point you towards is someone who made this little movie, and he used a DJI Inspire drone, which is sitting on the table next to him, and he actually made a comparison of how well these drones are suited for spying. So could you spy with a consumer's drone? When this webinar is done, I would say just go out on YouTube and take a look at the video. It's quite interesting, but it's 7 minutes, so I'm not going to show it here. I will, however, run you through some of his results and some of my own observations and some of the some other results that were done by a couple of guys that were testing the equipment. So how bad is it? Well, first of all, let's start privacy concerns well, most countries have laws about this, so it's definitely not something that is legal to do in many countries, this spying. People have a reasonable expectation of privacy, and when that reasonable expectation is attacked or is under stress, then there might be a case that it is illegal. So let's see by some examples. Also, please keep in mind that countries differ, right? I know what the Dutch law is. I know what most of the European laws are and the US law, but there could also be countries where there simply are no laws about this. And of course, morally and ethically, we should think about this too, and not just as a purely legal question. So is this okay or not? Right, so this is a drone shot from a crowd. Well, obviously you can't really identify any persons on this photograph, so most people would say that this is okay, and in fact it is, because in every country where we have privacy laws, if you're in a public gathering, in a public space, it is perfectly legal to make photographs, whether this be out on the street or up from the sky or from the window of a apartment building. It doesn't really matter. In fact, even if the people are personally identifiable, for instance, in a situation where the drone would be flying over a busy marketplace, even then, the people do not have a reasonable expectation of privacy. You're out on the street, you are completely identifiable by anyone walking, driving, cycling there, and obviously it doesn't really matter if you hold the camera in your hand or if you fly it up in the air. So is this okay or not? Yep, I would definitely say most countries it's okay. Now, is it safe and sound to fly above crowds like this? I would definitely say no. As I said in the introduction, these machines have definitely the capability of causing quite some injuries, and that's also the reason why, for instance, in the Netherlands, you're just simply not allowed to fly them above crowds. Quite sane, because they are flying circle saws. Is this okay then? How much reasonable expectation of privacy do you have when you are out on the beach enjoying the sun? Well, that's getting a bit in a grey area, because while you can definitely say that it's a public area and therefore there is no expectation of privacy on a public beach, still, morally and ethically speaking, this would definitely be seen as an invasion of privacy by most people. So even though it might not technically not be illegal, I would disadvise anyone from trying this. And this, well, this is definitely illegal in all countries I know of. You can't just simply fly up to a window and film inside what's happening. People do have a reasonable expectation of privacy in their own homes, and it is definitely illegal in virtually all countries to spy on someone using a camera while they are in their own home. But this is where it becomes interesting, because even though it is illegal, it's quite possible, and if you spot a drone hovering in front of your window, how are you going to identify the owner? He might be, hundreds of meters away. He does not even have to see the drone, because he could have been flying the drone purely on the live video feed. So yeah, that's difficult. However, let's look at the camera technology, because are we sure that we're not exaggerating the dangers? Because I know many people think that these high-resolution cameras can do a lot. Well, they make beautiful shots, but 99% of these shots are fisheye lens, so wide-angle lens or ultra-wide-angle lens. And although it's quite possible to get near a target with a drone, it's very, very difficult to get near a target unnoticed. So if you use a standard consumer-level drone to spy on someone, you're going to have to be, well, I'd say within 30 feet of that person to actually be able to see what this person is doing or where he is exactly, or have any chance at actually spying on any of his activities. Forget looking over his shoulder to see what he's typing. Forget looking over his shoulder to see the documents that he's reading. You'd have to be much, much closer using this camera technology, because 4K sounds cool, but really, honestly, it's all in the lens. Standard drone cameras are just simply not suited for spying. And there's a link here in this presentation that gives you a lot of information about that. And in fact, I've taken the liberty of taking a few of these pictures, and I'll show you them. So if you want to actually spy from a distance where your drone is unnoticeable, so that would mean several dozen feet at the very least. Let's do a comparison. So we're going to compare a drone versus a digital SLR camera with a telephoto lens. Now, this is the drone picture, cropped at one scale. So we're looking to spy on the girl in the blue trousers standing in front of the steps there. And now wait for it. That is the drone picture. So she is barely recognizable. This is the best you can do with a consumer drone at this moment in time. And this is actually what you do with the telephoto lens. From the same distance, same girl, same place, fully recognizable. So really, there's not much privacy invasion from a drone at a distance of 30-40 meters. If you actually go back and watch that YouTube video from a couple of slides back, this is exactly what you'll see there too. This other research comes to the same conclusion. You have to be really close to a subject using a drone to be able to spy on them visually. Basically, what you have to do, if you really want to spy, is do this. So take yourself a big telephoto lens and hook it up to one of the cameras under the drone. This will not fly, of course, because the weight of the lens in this case, this is a Photoshop, so the weight of the lens would actually prohibit the drone from flying. That's not to say that you couldn't build one. All right, so especially a drone in the hex or octocopter class is definitely capable of bringing up a big telephoto lens and a digital SLR weighing several pounds and bringing that in the sky. So that would be the only case where you would actually have a significant spying threat from a drone with a distance that the drone could not be identified easily. But then you have to think, wouldn't it be easier just to stand on a rooftop somewhere and make the same photos? Or if you're in the free and open field, I mean, I'm sure there's other ways of hiding photographic equipment with a big telephoto lens. So to me, even though the tech could do it in theory, the consumer tech definitely cannot, and I just fail to see the actual business case for someone wanting to spy in this way. So really the only threat that I do see, which is a perceived threat, but it's potentially there. It's a kid's toy. Most of these drones are in private hands now and not state controlled. So you are going to get, I think, a lot of pranksters and young kids flying these things around, trying to spy on, sunbathing girls. But that's going to be the extent of it. It's not going to be nice for these girls, but I don't see any real privacy threats for spying in this way using the cameras. It is going to be an issue, sort of, because it's easier simply to spy when you're not there. So it's easy to send up one of these things in the air and feel detached about it. So there's a psychological part there too. And the drone laws that are coming out now, they don't cover privacy. So we have to rely on the existing privacy law. And I think those factors combine to make a perceived threat, but in reality it's not going to be a very large threat. However, you may disagree, and I would like to hear your opinions if you do. So in conclusion, it's mass consumer adoption of this. As I said, 1 million of these things sold in the US now is definitely going to lead to an increase of privacy concerns, and some concerns are definitely legitimate. You do not want to be spied on while you are in your garden enjoying the sun, and that is definitely, I think, going to be one of the bigger concerns. However, the consumer drone tech is just not meant for spying. The lenses are too bad, they're all wide angle, you can't see a thing. You'd have to be so close that it would typically be quite easy to knock the drone out of the air with a broomstick or a stone. Just throw it in the propellers. If you hit one, then the drone is going to come down. So it's also going to be that is also going to happen. I can assure you. And well, that makes it really that the only viable threat to privacy would be a custom drone. So that would make spying very possible, either using the wireless interception and software-defined radio stuff that we discussed at the beginning of the presentation, but also it is conceivable to build a custom drone with a telephoto lens and bring it up in the air. So it's definitely possible. And as I mentioned, the legislation is way behind. So the future, well, I don't know, but I don't think this is going to be a very standard outfit for the drone hunters. But I do expect quite a few drones to be shot out of the sky in the next few years by angry dads of girls that have been spied on, or other angry people who just don't want a drone over their house, which I can very much agree with. There's one thing I haven't mentioned yet. Because of these concerns, there are some manufacturers who are taking steps already and who are incorporating what we're calling geo-fencing. This means that based on the GPS of the device, it will not fly into a certain zone. So this could be, for instance, a geo-fence around the White House, so no drones allowed inside this virtual dome around the White House. But it's certainly also possible, there's already a register being opened for people to register their residential address to be included in the geo-blocking databases. So various manufacturers have already started making it possible to sort of opt out of being flown over using one of these commercially available drones. However, it's not going to be very effective because a drone, for instance, based on the technology that mine is based on, open source, well, I can make it fly anywhere. and my geo-fencing is also optional, so I can switch it on or off. So it's a good step, but probably not going to be very effective unless you have one of these consumer drones that are being sold now for Christmas. They will probably have this feature in one of the next software upgrades. All right, so that brings me to the conclusion of this presentation on drones and privacy. Do we have any, let's see, do we have any questions?
Okay, Ralph, we have one person who wants to ask a question by herself, so we will give him the possibility to do that. Just let me unmute her microphone. Okay, Exxon, you will be able now to ask your question. Exxon, can you hear me? Okay, you can ask your question now if you want.
Okay, I just wanted to know if the professor thinks that in the near future the cameras used for drones now will be more sophisticated, and then I think that the privacy would be...
I'm sorry, the sound is so low that I cannot hear it.
Okay, Ralph, I have the question here, so I will read the question by myself.
Okay.
The question says that, do you think that in the near future the cameras used for drones will be so sophisticated to threat the privacy?
No, I don't think so, because as I mentioned in one of the slides, it's all about the camera lens, and proper optical equipment is very heavy. So that means that the drone flight time would be considerably shortened, and that would just simply not make for a attractive commercial drone. So while the camera itself, the resolutions of the cameras will go up, and especially the stability features and control features of the camera, the actual zooming capability will not go up that much. I'm not saying it won't go up, but it will not reach the levels of a digital SLR with a 200mm telephoto lens. It's just simply too energy consumptive to bring a piece of equipment weighing that much up. So it'll go up, but not up that much that it will be a serious threat to privacy. It might be a threat to other things, but not that.
Okay, we have another person who has a question. Is Tim, who wants to make a question? Okay, Tim, you can go on.
Thank you, Xim. Thank you, Ralph, for this great presentation. Quite some important information were revealed. I read quite recently an article that the Federal Aviation Agency has set up its drone registration system, stating that starting from December 21st, all individuals that own a drone weighing between 0.55 and 55 pounds are required to register their drones online by February 19th. So this is a decision coming from the national agency. So my question is, do you think this is a step towards protection against the privacy of drones, and whether this will become a future business for many different companies? Your opinion, please. Thank you.
Yeah, indeed. There's a mandatory registration now. Well, it will go into effect before Christmas, so before all these million drones are given as a gift over the holiday season. It's not so much meant as a privacy guard. The perceived threat of drones by the FAA has more to do with a public safety issue. Drones, especially the DJIs and the other commercial ones, they are known to have what we call fly-offs or flyaways, and this means they just take off in a direction and are never seen again. At some point in time, they're going to crash. People have been known to fly these things over freeways. People have been known to fly these things in places, for instance, near airports, where there's an aviation threat. And for this reason, they want these drones to be registered. It's unclear at this point, however, how you would identify a drone by its registration when it's flying over a forbidden zone, because, well, I don't know how you would make letters big enough to make it readable from the ground. So I'm not sure that this registration is going to be very effective now. It's, however, as I said, not meant as a privacy guard. You won't be able to look up on a public database who owns a drone if you found one crashed in your garden. That will have to go through the authorities. So the only scenario I guess I can see this helping is if you have a drone over your house or company or office and you actually physically get it out of the air and to get the serial number and give that to the authorities to check. I don't see any other way that would be working. So I hope that answers your question a bit.
Yes, thank you.
Rolf, we have another question. It says, how about building any detector to know when the drone will approach to a home or office? Is it possible?
Yes, it's possible. As I mentioned, there are already a couple of companies that build a drone detector. It's difficult though, because you will have to have a optical recognition system that recognizes a drone and can see the difference between a bird and a drone. And this has proven to be an engineering challenge. I spoke to, as I said, the security officer for this nuclear facility, and they did find a vendor in the end that sold a system that could identify drones and also take countermeasures. Yep.
Okay, we have no more question, and thank you, Ralph, for this highly informative presentation. Thanks to all the attendees, and I believe you had the chance to learn new things today, and I suggest you to take time and see our future webinar that we will be hosting. Tomorrow, we will host a topic that is called ISO 27001 in the world today, why you should consider it. Thank you once again, and hope to meet you soon.
Okay, thank you, Gazim.
Thank you.